Hello and welcome to the second edition of the A-League Rundown. We're a little bit like the F1 notebook, only for Football Manager 21. I'm Charlie, and let me begin by wishing you all a very happy new year. Here's hoping that 2021 is a lot better than 2020. The format for the rundown is pretty simple. We have a look at what's been happening with all the different A-League teams within the last week. That includes results, transfers, everything that's happening. Press conferences. Carl Robinson is under pressure already. You might be interested to know that. We begin with Adelaide United, and they suffered a 3-2 loss to Newcastle Jets this week. That means that Adelaide are yet to win this season after a draw and then a defeat. Good news has come in the form of Tommy Jurick's new contract. So he signed a new 2-year deal, despite only just arriving on a free transfer, as you can see in the previous few months. Good news for all Adelaide fans that their number one striker is sticking around. Noah Smith, a young man, he's joined Western Strikers on loan. So he actually played in the game this weekend for Adelaide United as they took on Western United in real life. Did pretty well, but he has been shipped out for a bit of first team experience. Brisbane Roar, they suffered obviously that 3-1 defeat against ourselves, as broadcast on YouTube. Very proud of that result. They were then drawn to play against Ratchaburi in the East first preliminary round of the Champions League. They are a Thai side. The fixture will be played over in Thailand, an away fixture there for Brisbane as they look to get into the Asian Champions League proper. George Mells has also signed a new 3-year contract. For ourselves, we had that 3-1 win over Brisbane with Ruiz Diaz, Janota and Matt Simon on the score sheet. The big news for us, however, has been the trials offered to several defenders. So something that I have talked about before, not only in the rundown but in the games itself, has been our defence. I'm not convinced by Kai Rolls. Ruin Tongic, not done so badly for me, but yeah, Rolls is somebody that we'd look to probably replace. So we've taken 4 defenders on trials to have a quick look at them and see if they fit in, how good their stats are. So we've offered trials to George Niedermeyer, Tim Hoogland, Dino Julbic and Matt Sporanovic. So a good mixture, the likes of former Victory players, former Perth Glory, all with success in their careers. We're just having a look at them for now. Some of them are on 1-week trials, some are on 4-week trials, just to see if they're a lot better than what we have at the club already. I want to see if their stats compare to Kai Rolls or not. I want to see where they're up to. Ideally, I'd like to sign one of them. The budget, we don't have a massive amount remaining, so it is going to be the case of probably one of them. And it's basically a 4-way shootout to see which one we get onto the roster. For Macarthur Fc, they earned their second win of the season, 1-0 over Perth Glory, thanks to Matt Derbyshire's second goal of the season. So he now has 2 goals in 2 games for the experienced former Blackburn Rovers striker. So Macarthur certainly making themselves at home, as in real life, got that impressive win against Western Sydney. Here in the world of Football Manager 21 and the Mariners Massive, they are certainly doing themselves justice. For Melbourne City, it was a Desmond, a 2-2 draw against Wellington Phoenix. Jamie McLaren and Adrian Luna, he of the real life red card of course, on the score sheet. There have been new long-term deals for the likes of Andrew Nabout and Florin Berenguer. They have been drawn against Jeonbuk, who I think are a pretty difficult team. I don't see Melbourne City making it through this one, unfortunately. They are away in the Champions League East playoff. So we heard before about Brisbane having their fixtures. This one is going to be another tough game for an A-League side to make it through. Patrick Kisnorbo actually spotted over at the Hunter Stadium, potentially checking on the progress of loanee Rami Najareen. More on him later on, actually. Melbourne Victory, there are problems at the moment. So they have now played 3 fixtures and lost all of them. The latest to Western United, 3-0, and Wellington Phoenix, 3-2. They've now conceded 7 goals in 3 games. Grant Brebner is on the FA radar. Bit of a warning issued to him following his angry reaction for a controversial penalty award. Alessandro Diamanti scored those. Adama Traore, he signed a new 2-year deal. So just 30 years old. It feels like he's older. It feels like he's been around forever. But no, he's got a few good years left in him, and they look to be with the victory. These are the comments from Grant Brebner. Not happy. It was never a penalty. Everybody can make mistakes, but it's still hard to take a decision like that. Media handling style, outspoken, to say the least there for the Melbourne Victory boss. Newcastle Jets, they've signed new contracts with Jack Duncan and Matt Miller. So he's currently just completing a loan to Shrewsbury Town here in the United Kingdom. Played well by all accounts. I think they'd like to keep hold of him. But he's been signed to a new 2-year deal. Same with Jack Duncan. So he's just arrived. Similar to Tommy Jurek, what we had with Adelaide. He only just arrived in the last few months. But previously at the Sutherland Sharks youth setup. Interesting one. So he's probably their number 1 this year. It's interesting with Jack Duncan because when the Jets made it to the grand final, the VAR final, of course, he was actually their number 1 goalkeeper and got injured, I think, in the semi-final and then missed out on the final itself. Went abroad and has now sort of returned following the retirement of veteran goalkeeper Glenn Moss. So Jets enjoyed the win, the 3-2 victory over Adelaide. Thanks to goals from Roy the Boy, Roy O'Donovan, Rami Najareen, as we said with Patrick Kisnorbo in the crowd at the Hunter Stadium earlier, and Joe Ledley. So Joe Ledley, a bit up in the air with Newcastle Jets this season. He's actually in the game, penned a new 1-year deal, and that's why he's there in the team and on the score sheet. Perth Glory, second loss of the season came to Macarthur, so they've lost both their games so far. Just a 1-0 win this time with that goal from Matt Derbyshire. Interesting about Chris Economides. So talked about him being on the transfer list last week. It looks like he's on his way to Italy. So the likes of Empoli, Salernitana and Frosinone. I mean, congratulations to myself for getting those names almost right. Big upside to Chris. I don't know quite why Perth are letting him go. Even if he won't sign a new contract, keep him there for the season. You'd rather have a player of his quality. Socceroos experience. You never want to lose that. So Perth, obviously, it's been a bit of a funny one with them because they've kind of gone downwards since Tony Popovic won the Premiership. Even the season after, with him still in charge, things were on a bit of a downward spiral. We had the Diego Castro situation, where he didn't want to be part of the return of the A-League. Memes online about him being out in a caravan somewhere. And then now the likes of Chris Economides, here in the Mariners Massive, not in real life, on his way out. It just seems a bit strange, and it just feels like Perth are kind of accepting their fate as towards the lower reaches of the A-League, which I don't think is like them at all. I think they're sort of fighters. Be that as it may, we move on to Sydney FC and the Sky Blues. They won in the Sydney derby. Big result for Steve Corica, Bimby. He picked up a 2-0 win over Western Sydney Wanderers. Goals scored by the 2 Bs, Trent Bahaja and Costa Barbaricius. big for them, I think, to get that win, because Western Sydney on a bit of a bad run now, and Corica delighted with the win over the rivals. A big result for the fans. I'm really a big fan of Steve Corica. I think he's picked up where Graham Arnold left off. I see a lot of criticism online about him, especially from the sort of the vocal minority. Well, he's taken over a successful team. Yeah, you can do that, but there are a lot of examples in history of people taking over successful teams and it not going right. You only have to look at the history of Manchester United since Sir Alex Ferguson left. How about Arsenal since Arsene Wenger left? How badly it's gone there. They're now considering to be in a relegation fight. I don't think that's the case really, but it just goes to show how things can go. Tony Popovich, having left Perth Glory, people are now looking towards the lower reaches, as we just mentioned. Bit of a difficult one. Steve Corica can't really do right for doing wrong. If he continues the success, well, it's based on Graham Arnold. If he loses, well, it's up to him. He's in a sort of no-win situation, so you just do the best you can and pick up the silverware. Big respect to him as far as that's concerned. Wellington Phoenix, well, they are top of the A-League. No other way of saying it. So they've played 2 games in the last week, so they've now played 3, which is one more than most teams have played. They got a draw against Melbourne City, and then a 3-2 win against the Victory. Tomer Hemed now has got 2 goals in his last 2 games, and they've also sent a new contract over to Stefan Marinovic. I really think that the A-League is stocked with some good goalkeepers this year, and he's one of them, Stefan Marinovic. I believe he was in our A-League FC team of the season last year. If he wasn't, he was on the bench. One of the better goalkeepers in the A-League, and the fans are delighted to see him repay their faith in him by committing his long-term future to bringing success at the club. I do think he was named, I don't know if I can see it on this screen, in the New Zealand Player Team of the Year. The best 11. Here you go. So Stefan Marinovic in goal there. The likes of Winston Reid, Libby Kakache is here. Sarpreet Singh, Costa Barbaricius. So this is why it's appeared on the Sydney FC page. Tim Payne, controversial choice maybe. Wellington Phoenix, given his off-field activities as of late. And then Marco Rojas up there. I think he'll do well again for Victory this year. And that's the team as laid out here in Football Manager. So back to the Knicks, top of the league, scoring plenty of goals as well. Probably just need to look a bit further back at the defence, because they seem to be shipping them as well. But always going to be the case after the departure of Stephen Taylor. Western Sydney Wanderers had that disappointing defeat. And it's never good to read quotes like this from the manager, Carl Robinson. So he basically admitted that Steve Corica got the better of him for the game. They have now lost 2 in succession. They, of course, crashed to a 5-0 defeat against ourselves, the Central Coast Mariners, in the first game of the season. So that means that they've now scored none in 2 games and conceded 7 goals in the process. That's not brilliant for Western Sydney Wanderers, as they've sent out Jared Coluccio on the actual free transfer. So he's not just gone out on loan, he has been dismissed. Western United, so obviously an expansion side, I think that's the term. Last year, they've got 2 wins out of 2 now, so 6 points to their name. Home wins coming over Sydney FC and the latest one against Melbourne Victory. Ignore the graphic is wrong, where it says that Melbourne Victory won 3-0, they actually lost 3-0. I can assure you that Western United picked up the win. It was 2 penalties for Alessandro Diamante, best player in the comp as far as I'm concerned, and a Josh Cavallo goal, sealing all 3 points against the Big V. As you can see, Adama Traore felt the penalty was harsh, one of them, in the 34th minute, and Grant Brebner slamming officials at the post-match press conference. That obviously drew the ire of the FA now, because that's changed in the last few days. There's been an unbundling of the league and the governing body, I suppose you put it. I think it's quite similar to the way that the Premier League and Championship exist separate to the FA here in the UK. I think that's how I'd describe it. In other news, however, for Western United and Mark Rudan, Philip Curto has been awarded a new 2-year deal. So former goalkeeper of the year in the A-League when he was with Wellington Phoenix. Really good goalkeeper, another one as well. Does enjoy a very spectacular dive when the ball's gone past him. And Jerry Scatardist is out on loan at Avondale FC. So he's a young man, only 20 years old, but he's rejected offers from Adelaide City, the Oakley Cannons, great name, and Green Gully to join Avondale, who are one of the big NPL sides. Always do well in the FFA Cup, to be honest. Do Avondale. So just going to have a quick look at the league table. As you can see, 3 games played, 2 wins and a draw have put Wellington Phoenix up on 7 points. So they are ahead of the likes of ourselves with 6, Western United, Newcastle Jets and Macarthur. So all with 2 wins out of 2. Down at the bottom, bit of a worry for the likes of Perth Glory, Melbourne Victory and Western Sydney Wanderers. So a total of 7 games played for those clubs, not a win in sight. And a bit of a worry, Western Sydney Wanderers with a -7 goal difference. Yeah, it's already started pretty badly for Carl Robinson. So much as in real life, where they suffered the 1-0 defeat against Macarthur in their opening game of the season, obviously in the Mariners' massive world, similarly, not having a great time of it. In terms of the fixtures, it's a bit of a weird one now because next time we're actually on YouTube for the Mariners will be not against Western Sydney Wanderers, but will be against Melbourne City because the fixtures are coming thick and fast and there's 2 in a week. It's not going to happen a lot this season if you look at the schedule, but the next couple of weeks are going to be double game weeks. So in the sense of our save here on YouTube, there will be 1 off camera and then 1 on, and then everything will be reported on here in the A-League rundown. So the fixtures we've got looks a tasty one for Adelaide United at Cooper Stadium against Brisbane Roar. The Jets host Perth Glory and Sydney FC take on Western United for the 2nd time this season. Similarly, we've got Western Sydney Wanderers, so we beat them 5-0 on the opening day. Let's hope that we can repeat that away at Bankwest Stadium. Melbourne City against Macarthur, that looks like a strong tie. Adelaide are back in action at Coopers against Perth Glory. Sydney FC in a big blue against Melbourne Victory, one to look out for there. Macarthur host Brisbane. The Jets face Western United, 2 wins in 2 for Western. And then the Wanderers are back in action against the Knicks. Our game is there against Melbourne City, so we've got a bit of a gap, and then following that, we've got some more fixtures that will be covered the following week here on the A-League Rundown. Thank you for joining me today. I will see you next time when Central Coast Mariners face Melbourne City in another big fixture. I'll see you then.